The United States and Germany, steadfast allies for decades, partners in diplomacy, trade, and global leadership. But beneath the surface, tensions have been simmering. Germany, Europe's economic powerhouse, has made a move so audacious, it has sent shockwaves through Washington and beyond. Is this the beginning of a transatlantic trade war? Buckle up as we delve into the complex web of global trade, political intrigue, and economic warfare. This isn't just about tariffs or trade deficits. It's about power, influence, and the future of the global economy. Germany has just made the opening move. Get ready, because the world is about to change. For years, Germany has balanced its deep economic ties with the United States, dependence on Russian energy, and the allure of China's booming market. The energy crisis in Europe, fueled by the conflict in Ukraine, has exposed Germany's vulnerabilities. China, with its vast economic might, offers an alternative. Germany, it seems, has made its choice, signaling a direct challenge to the United States. The relationship between Germany and the United States has long been a complex tapestry of cooperation and competition. After World War II, the US played a pivotal role in rebuilding Germany's economy through the Marshall Plan. This act of economic generosity forged a strong bond, cementing Germany's place within the Western sphere of influence. Trade between the two nations flourished, but economic tensions simmered beneath the surface. Germany's export-driven economy often clashed with the US's. Nasa penkiwas, deesin. Taosoike sa fokyu. Ia sa posos. Onometica consumption, exposing friction between two economic giants. The 21st century brought new challenges and further strained the transatlantic partnership. The global financial crisis of 2008 exposed the interconnectedness of the global financial system and highlighted Germany's vulnerabilities. The election of Donald Trump in 2016 marked a turning point, with protectionist trade policies igniting a trade war. Disagreements over climate change, NATO spending, and the Iran nuclear deal widened the rift between Washington and Berlin. The energy crisis following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 proved to be a catalyst for a fundamental shift in Germany's strategic calculus. Germany, heavily reliant on Russian natural gas, found itself vulnerable to geopolitical machinations. As the conflict escalated, Moscow weaponized its energy exports, cutting off gas supplies to Europe. In this context, China's economic might presented an increasingly tempting alternative. The breaking news hit like a diplomatic earthquake. Germany, long a cornerstone of the Western Alliance, had inked a sweeping trade agreement with China. This was not just another trade deal. It was a tectonic shift in the global balance of power. The agreement encompassed cooperation in key strategic sectors, including technology, energy, and infrastructure. The United States expressed deep concern, warning of the risks of Chinese economic coercion. But Germany was undeterred, and the world watched as a new chapter in global trade unfolded. The German-Chinese agreement was comprehensive and controversial. At its heart lay a massive energy pact, with China investing billions in German renewable energy projects. The deal also paved the way for deeper cooperation in technology, with German companies expanding operations in China. This technological entwinement raised concerns about the transfer of sensitive technologies. Germany's alignment with China signaled a shift towards a multipolar world order. The American response to Germany's trade deal with China was swift and unambiguous. Accusations of betrayal filled the airwaves as politicians grappled with the implications. The Biden administration faced a new dilemma: how to manage a key ally willing to go its own way. The German-Chinese trade deal exposed a fundamental truth. The days of unquestioned American leadership were over. Germany's bold move sent shockwaves through the European Union, exposing a deep rift within the bloc. Some member states saw Germany's pivot as pragmatic, while others viewed it with suspicion. The debate centered on balancing economic pragmatism with geopolitical strategy. Germany's decision threatened to undermine the EU's efforts to present a united front. Germany's trade deal with China symbolized China's growing global influence. For years, China had been expanding its economic and political footprint. Germany's decision represented a major coup for Beijing, signaling that even America's closest allies were willing to hedge their bets. The deal served as a stark reminder that the world was entering a new era, one defined by Chinese power. The aftershocks of Germany's trade deal reverberated through the global economy. The old rules of the game, underpinned by American hegemony, were crumbling. The world was entering an era of shifting alliances and intensified competition. The immediate impact was felt in financial markets, with investors reacting nervously. The long-term consequences of this seismic shift remained unclear. Germany's trade deal with China was driven by economic and energy security concerns. Beneath the surface lay a gamble on the future of green energy. Germany sought to transition away from fossil fuels, but the energy crisis exposed its dependence on Russian gas. The trade deal with China offered access to affordable renewable energy technology. Critics argued it would make Germany dependent on China for critical components. Germany's green energy gamble was a high-stakes bet with far-reaching implications. Section 2. Whispers of discontent, cracks within Germany. While the German government presented a united front in its defense of the trade deal with China, beneath the surface, whispers of discontent began to emerge from various corners of German society. These murmurs of unease were not just limited to the political sphere, but extended into the everyday lives of ordinary citizens. Within the German business community, while some large corporations celebrated the new opportunities presented by the Chinese market, seeing it as a gateway to unprecedented growth and profits, smaller and medium-sized enterprises, or SMEs, expressed concerns about being squeezed out by Chinese competition. These smaller businesses feared that they would not be able to compete on a level playing field with the influx of cheaper Chinese goods and services. These SMEs, often the backbone of the German economy, worried that the deal would lead to job losses and a decline in their competitiveness. The potential for layoffs and factory closures loomed large, casting a shadow over their future. Meanwhile, German labor unions voiced anxieties about the deal's potential impact on workers' rights and environmental standards. They feared that the agreement might undermine hard-won labor protections and lead to a race to the bottom in terms of wages and working conditions. They argued that the agreement lacked sufficient safeguards to prevent Chinese companies from exploiting workers or engaging in environmentally damaging practices. The absence of stringent regulations raised alarms about the potential for increased pollution and environmental degradation. These concerns resonated with some segments of the German public, who worried that the pursuit of economic gain was coming at the expense of social and environmental responsibility. The fear was that economic benefits would be unevenly distributed, leaving the most vulnerable segments of society to bear the brunt of negative consequences. The German government's decision to forge closer ties with China had exposed a fundamental tension within German society, a tension that was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. A tension between the pursuit of economic prosperity and the preservation of social and environmental values. This dichotomy was not just a theoretical debate, but a real and pressing issue that affected the lives of many Germans. As Germany navigated this complex landscape, the challenge for its leaders was to balance these competing interests in a way that maintained social cohesion and public trust. The path forward required careful consideration and a commitment to ensuring that economic progress did not come at the cost of the nation's core values. A domino effect. The global power play unfolds, setting the stage for a dramatic shift in international relations. Germany's trade deal with China sent ripples through the international community, causing a significant stir among global powers. This unexpected alliance prompted other countries to reassess their own alliances and strategic calculations, leading to a flurry of diplomatic activity. For some US allies, particularly in Europe and Asia, the move was both surprising and concerning. Germany's move was seen as a wake-up call, a stark reminder of the shifting dynamics in global power structures. It signaled that the United States could no longer be relied upon as the sole guarantor of their security and economic interests, prompting a re-evaluation of their strategies. These countries, facing their own economic challenges and security concerns, found themselves at a crossroads. They began to explore alternative partnerships, seeking new alliances to secure their futures. In an effort to diversify their economic ties and reduce their dependence on the United States, these nations sought new trade routes and markets. The deal also emboldened countries that had long chafed under US hegemony, such as Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. These nations saw in Germany's actions an opportunity to challenge the existing world order and assert their own influence. They viewed this as a chance to realign global power dynamics and advance their own agendas on the world stage. Consequently, they stepped up their efforts to forge closer ties with China, seeking to create a counterweight to US influence in their respective regions. This strategic maneuvering marked a significant shift in the global balance of power, with new alliances forming and old ones being tested. Germany's trade deal with China, while ostensibly a bilateral agreement, had set in motion a global power play with far-reaching consequences. The ramifications of this deal were felt across continents, influencing economic policies and diplomatic strategies worldwide. The world was entering an era of shifting alliances, multipolarity, and intensified competition as countries sought to navigate a more complex and unpredictable geopolitical landscape. The old rules of the game were being rewritten, and the outcome of this power struggle would shape the future of the international order for decades to come. As nations adapted to this new reality, the global stage was set for a period of profound transformation and uncertainty. The stakes were higher than ever, with each move carefully calculated to secure a place in the emerging world order. The future of international relations hung in the balance as the global power play continued to unfold. The aftershocks of Germany's audacious move continued to ripple through the halls of power, leaving the United States grappling with the implications of a world where its influence is no longer absolute. The once unchallenged superpower now faces a reality where its decisions are met with skepticism and its authority is questioned. For decades, the US stood as the architect of the global order, shaping alliances, dictating terms, and wielding its economic and military might to advance its interests. It was a time when American leadership was synonymous with stability and progress. But the ground has shifted. The geopolitical landscape is no longer as predictable as it once was. The unquestioned dominance that defined the post-Cold War era is fading, giving way to new power dynamics and emerging players on the global stage, replaced by a more fragmented and multipolar world. Nations are now more willing to explore diverse alliances and partnerships. Germany's pivot towards China, once unthinkable, is a stark illustration of this changing reality. It signifies a shift in global loyalties and economic strategies. It exposes the limits of American power in a world where economic interests often trump traditional alliances. Countries are increasingly prioritizing their own economic growth over long-standing political ties. The energy crisis in Europe, exacerbated by the conflict in Ukraine, has revealed the vulnerability of America's allies and their willingness to seek alternative partnerships to secure their economic well-being. This crisis has underscored the need for diversified energy sources and more resilient economic policies. Has revealed the vulnerability of America's allies and their willingness to seek alternative partnerships to secure their economic well-being. The old playbook of sanctions and pressure, once highly effective, is losing its potency in a world seeking alternatives to a US-centric system. The rise of other economic powers has diluted the impact of American financial strategies. This is not to say that the United States is in terminal decline. It still holds significant sway in international affairs. It remains a formidable economic and military power, with unmatched capabilities in many areas, capable of projecting its influence across the globe. However, the nature of this influence is evolving. But the days of dictating terms and expecting unwavering loyalty from its allies are over. The global community is more assertive and independent. The world is no longer content to play by Washington's rules. New alliances and power structures are forming, reflecting a more complex and interconnected global landscape. As the dust settles from Germany's seismic move, a new world order is taking shape. One characterized by shifting alliances, multipolar power dynamics, and a heightened sense of uncertainty. The old certainties of the Cold War era, with its clear ideological divides and predictable alliances, have given way to a more fluid and complex geopolitical landscape. The rise of China, with its economic might and global ambitions, has fundamentally altered the balance of power, creating new opportunities and challenges for nations struggling to adapt. In this new world, the lines between friend and foe are blurred. Economic interests often trump ideological considerations as countries prioritize their own survival and prosperity in an increasingly competitive global marketplace. Regional powers, emboldened by the shifting global dynamics, are asserting themselves on the world stage, challenging the traditional dominance of the West and seeking to shape the rules of the game to their advantage. This new world order presents both opportunities and risks. The potential for cooperation on global challenges such as climate change, pandemics, and economic instability remains, but it will require a new approach to diplomacy and a willingness to embrace multilateral solutions. The risks, however, are significant. Miscalculation and miscommunication could easily escalate into conflict, particularly in regions with long-standing tensions and competing territorial claims. The future of global power hangs in the balance, poised between a return to great power competition and the emergence of a more cooperative and rules-based international order. The choices made by the United States, China, and other major powers in the coming years will determine the trajectory of global affairs for decades to come. Will they embrace dialogue and cooperation, seeking common ground on shared challenges? Or will they succumb to the siren song of nationalism and zero-sum thinking, leading the world down a path of division, distrust, and ultimately, conflict? The stakes could not be higher. The future of global peace and prosperity hinges on the ability of nations to navigate this complex and rapidly changing geopolitical landscape. The old rules of the game are no longer sufficient. A new approach is needed, one grounded in mutual respect, dialogue, and a shared commitment to building a more just, equitable, and sustainable world order. What do you think? Will Germany's bold move be a catalyst for a more fragmented and conflict-prone world? Or will it spur a new era of cooperation and shared responsibility? The answer, as always, lies in the choices we make today. Let us choose wisely.